start until 10:30. Make sure everybody has time. Yeah.
Upstairs, yeah. I was last week on Tuesday, had freaked out all of a sudden, see someone log in and all this was going into my computer and all that. Hey, you on my PC? Someone's logging into my PC. Right, don't worry, we've worked it out. Vincenzo, how are you?
Could everybody who's not presenting please mute their microphones? Got 1 minute. There were bound to be people just coming on at 10:30. Let them have that. Would you like to come over here, or would you like me to put those over there?
I'll come over there.
Well, the recording is starting, has already started, so we might get going. Thank you everybody for coming to RRL for this today, and thank you so much, Duncan, for coming a little bit further than everybody else to be with us today. We're really looking forward to finding out more about how to best use Novelist. This is Tim, everybody, by the way, who is from Esco. Esco would not be happy with that. I'm sure you would. Thanks very much. And everybody who's out there will mute their microphones if they are not presenting, and that would be great, and then everyone will be able to hear. Would you like me to start your?
Yes, if you would, please, that'd be great. Perfect. Thank you, Amy. Good morning. I'm still trying to figure out what time it is and what day it is, because when I call home, it's 13 or 14 hours yesterday here. And it's really kind of weird for me, anyway, not for you because you're used to being here. So anyway, I'm Duncan Smith. I'm the general manager and co-founder of Novelist, and which is a resource that you all have access to through the new New South Wales State Library. And what my intent this morning is to talk with you about some of the questions you get, as well as go over some of the things that Novelist has in it and how you might use it in your work with readers. Okay? Sound okay? I'm pretty flexible, so if what I'm doing, at least for the people in this room, isn't working, you should let me know and I can go back and forth. All right? What I'm going to start doing is showing a PowerPoint first, to sort of make sure that we all have a grounding and are on the same understanding of what's in Novelist and how you might use it in some of the functionality. And then we'll actually go live in the product, and I will walk you through some scenarios which are going to help me create and show you how we might use Novelist, not only to answer the reader's question, but also to deliver quality service to the reader and actually begin to establish relationships with the readers who use us. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, but before I do that, I want to sort of say to you that, and I've said this at every location I've been at so far, and I'll say it tomorrow often, that my love affair with Australia started when I was 11 years old in the 5th grade. And we had a pick a country of the world assignment and write a report about it. And I picked Australia. And so I wrote my report, I turned my report in, and I was pretty used to getting very good job, brilliant, excellent, clearly a future Nobel Prize winner, all that. That was the kind of stuff that I was used to getting. And I got an average, or C, on that report, and was very upset. And so I talked with the teacher about why. And she said, well, the report is great. All the information in here is very insightful, it's interesting, you did a good job researching your country, but you were supposed to right away and get a pamphlet or information from the country itself, and you didn't do that, so that's why I'm giving you a C. So, to help me undo that bad karma, what I want you to do is I want you to answer 3 questions for me, and you can just write them down and give them to me at the end of the day, all right? But I want you to, first of all, I want you to tell me something that you think I should know about Australian readers. Okay, and the second question is, or item, is something that you think I should know about Australian library staff. And then the third one is, what's the book I should read if I really want to understand Australia? Okay. And I've done this at every session I've been conducting, and it's been very wonderful for me to see the answers to those questions. So I'm looking forward to adding yours to the mix. All right. So, and those of you who are joining us virtually or digitally, you can answer those questions and then email me your answers at Duncan, D-U-N-C-A-N, at ebsco.com. That's Duncan, D-U-N-C-A-N, at ebsco, E-B-S-C-O.com. And the last slide of the PowerPoint will have my email address up, and I'll make sure that Amy knows how to get it to folks, and Ellen knows how to get in touch with me as well. Okay? So, before I start the PowerPoint, I've got a couple of more questions for you to get a sense of some of the things that may be going on in your libraries every day. All right? So, do you ever have people who come into the library and walk in and say things like, does the library own this book? Right? I mean, does the library have the new book by the author of The Drive? Does the library have this bestseller or this book I just heard about on the radio? So that question happens fairly often, I suspect, right? So that's one. Do you ever have users who come in and say, I just finished Peter Carey's new book and I just love him. Do you know somebody who writes just like him? Did that ever happen? Okay, all right. So sometimes people come in and say, and they'll ask you, when is the new book in this series coming out, or what is the next book in this series? That happen? All right. Sometimes reader about this high maybe will come in, sometimes with a parent, and frequently the parent is saying, I want you to find him a book that will make him a reader. Or he has to read a book, and you don't know anything about this child, whether he's ever read a book, whether he cares about reading, or what his interests are, and what his reading abilities are. That probably happens more for those of you who are in children's services than people who are not, but that's another question, right? What about someone comes in and says, I read this book 3 years ago, and it was the best book I've ever read, and I borrowed it from this library, but I can't remember the author or the title, but I know you know which one I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right. It has a picture of this on the cover or something like that. Okay. What about
they might record it and
sometimes people
record it and show it again later, and we might be able to.
No, please mute your microphone. Could everybody please mute their microphone? Thank you.
Sometimes a reader will come in and they may have a Harlequin in their hand, or they may have another romance in their hand, and they're saying, I really want another love story, but it has to be just at the right temperature. In other words, it can't be too explicit, or it can't be too chaste. And you have to sort of try to figure out where you are in that continuum with them. Make that happen ever? Okay. Let's see. And I think that's about some of the questions that when we go around asking people what questions readers are asking them, these are kind of questions that come up. And later in the presentation, what I'm going to do is walk through scenarios and show you how you can use Novelist to answer all those questions, based on what the user has given you, and in some cases, what the user has not given you. All right, does that sound helpful?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So just to go over some of the things that we're going to do this morning, we're going to talk about what is actually in Novelist and give you an update about Australian content in Novelist. We're going to talk about the basic search strategies that you can use in the product and some of the other information that's in there that makes those searches effective. We're going to talk about how to refine search results. And I'm not actually going to show you how to print things, but I'll show you where the print button is. All right. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that Novelist can do to help you, because we at Novelist are passionately committed to helping you help readers. And we do things like we're doing today, coming out talking about the product and how to use it in your situation. But we have newsletters, we have webinars, we have online training, we have training tips that we mail out, and we want to make sure that you are all aware of those free resources. We even have what we call the Book Squad, where they're sending out emails about different book topics, including posters that you can make and use locally as well. Okay. why might you use Novelist, or when might you use it? Well, and who might use it? First of all, we want to, while librarians tend to be our primary users and the people who use us the most, readers also enjoy the product. And what we have found and what staff tells us is that when they show Novelist to readers and introduce them to it, that many readers just sort of like run off with it, okay, and become fairly self-directed and independent users. And one of my favorite stories about that is Joyce Sarix was Novelist's first customer. And one of the first things she did when she got it installed is she sat one of her favorite patrons, who was a 70-year-old woman, down in front of it. And this woman loved serial killer books. And she had driven Joyce and her staff crazy trying to keep her in serial killer books. And so she sat down at the search bar, she typed in serial killer, and a couple of hundred books came back. And Joyce said the woman just looked at her, looked over her glasses, and says, "Novelist is like Christmas coming early." And then go away and leave me alone. And Joyce said she really never came to the desk anymore after that, but she would go straight to that kiosk. And so that's, an example of how to introduce, or the power of introducing the resource to readers. Okay, and we'll talk about how to do that in a way that helps readers feel engaged and connected to you and your work, and actually helps them value your knowledge and expertise. All right. So readers are important. You guys are important, not only in answering this face-to-face work that we're talking about right now, but when you're doing displays, when you're doing book lists, when you're thinking about trying to find books for a book discussion group, Novelist can help you in all those areas. Right, and of course, parents and teachers, there's a fair amount of information about books on particular type of curricular topics. There's a series of titles in there that are called grab and go lists, where we've taken topics like climate change or the life cycle and created lists of that were basically designed to be classroom collections, and we call them grab and go lists because the teacher could just grab the books and go with them. But there's some other things in there about teachers and parents, including strategies for helping find materials that readers can read successfully regardless of their grade level. So whether they're reading above grade level or below grade level, we'll show you a strategy for bringing and connecting those readers with books that are appropriate for them. So this is what the opening screen looks like on Novelist, right? And Novelist Plus, actually. And what you have in Novelist Plus is you have slightly over 400,000 titles for readers of all ages that reflect the typical public library collection. There is picture books in here, there are chapter books, there are young adult books, and there are adult titles. There are also audiobooks, audiobook versions of books. And I'll talk a little bit about how those books are described in just a second, because that's where the real power is. But we are reading about 30,000 titles a year. So 30,000 titles come in every year and get the level of treatment that we'll show you and talk about here in just a second. And so I suspect that one of the key questions that you have is, well, where are the Australian books? Okay. And what I want to say is that we have been tracking for several years the bestseller list, reviewing journal publications, and library websites to add Australian authors and titles to the database. But because we realize the importance of those authors to you and your readers, and to make Novelist more useful, we've recently partnered with ALS which is an Australian-based company out of Adelaide that supplies Australian books to Australian libraries. And so they are actually have given us an opening day collection for Australian titles that we are reviewing and adding to the database now. And they will be sending us every month 500 to 600 Australian titles to add into the database. And along with that will also come book jackets. They'll be supplying us book jackets, so you begin to see not just the text record, but a jacket that you will recognize in the product as well. And so that's going to start happening over the next couple of months, and we're very excited about that. And we think it'll make Novelist even more relevant and useful to you. For you and your work, this keyword search bar up here is where you're going to spend most of your time, because that's where you will enter keywords, author, title, series names, to get the results that will help you answer the questions that we just discussed. Another sort of fun thing to do, though, is Novelist, and I'll elaborate on this a little bit more in a few minutes, but Novelist has a class of metadata called appeal factors, all right? And what you see here is I'm in the mood for books that are function. In this case, bleak and brooding at the adult level.
I want to know what's in 0 to 8 for bleak and brooding.
Well, actually, you wouldn't find it in there, right? Because what will happen is bleak and brooding is a heading that's assigned only probably at the adult and young adult level. When we move to the ages 0 to 8, which is where the picture books are, there's a different set of terms that are used. All right. So these terms will change as you shift age groups, right, to more appropriate headings for that age group. So, for example, you might find at 0 to 8 gross, you know, or books that are boldly illustrated or cartoony, that kind of stuff that are more appropriate for that age groups. But yeah, but you can sort of see action-packed and fast-paced. So these are pairings that we're doing. And one of the ways to think about using Novelist is you can search on those terms. And if you wanted to do a book display, you could take these terms here and figure out combinations, you know, that you could use for book displays that might be interesting and kind of a new way to do a display that would attract interest as your readers are walking by. And is shelf talker the term that's used here for the little cards? I mean, think about using appeal factors as shelf toppers. You know, so that if we've labeled the book that's bleak and brooding, then you can make your shelf topper bleak and brooding and put it under the book. And so it's not, you know, the same thing as you writing a recommendation or a suggestion for it, but it's another way to sort of visually draw readers as they're walking through your collection, just to draw their attention to that, all right? So that's another way to use that, and we'll talk about our appeal mixer here in a few minutes, and we'll talk about some other browse functions that you have here, including the ability to browse genres at all age levels. And our recommended reading lists are on the left-hand corner there. We have 2 to 3 staff members whose job is to maintain our recommended reading lists. And so they're tracking primarily genre and subgenre. So they're someone on our staff who is looking at cozy mysteries as they come in and figuring out which ones are the best ones to put on the list. And so those lists are great sources for, again, a bookmark or a book display or a poster. And one of the things that have been really popular on these lists is not just the genre list, but the for fans of. And so we will take a movie or a TV series, and, you know, like Game of Thrones is both a book and the TV series. And so for fans of Games of for fans of Games of Thrones, there would be a list of fantasy titles that could either be used as a book display or as a little handy thing. If you have someone who is, and I'm going to throw this out here, and you can sort of think about it, but on your whole shelf, right? You know what that book is. You could print out a little short list or make a quick bookmark that's based on that title. And that way, when the reader comes in, even if the reader isn't talking with you directly, you've given them a little more books like idea, right? And, and you could even at the bottom put in, if you made the list and you're the cozy mystery expert or you're the cyberpunk science fiction expert, sign your list. And if you want to, give them your work email, saying contact me if you'd like more reading suggestions in this area. So it's a great way to reach readers who have gotten into the habit of just coming in to pick up a book and go out, to let them know that you have other ways of helping them find even more books to read. We just did I'll save that for later. Okay. Any other questions on this particular screen, right? Because this will be the starting point for everything else we do.
So you can just scroll your titles across, can you? Obviously, there's more there in that.
I can on this. I could in the. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Now I know what you're talking about. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can move that across, and it is a carousel. Okay. So that Novelist toolbar, and let me just show you where this is. This right up here at the top is a quick, handy-dandy anchor for a variety of things. You can click and go directly to our genre browse, our appeal browse. We're probably tracking somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 different award winners, award lists. Several Australian ones are in there. I would ask you to look at our list. If we're missing things that we don't have, that you think we should have, send them to us, right? We have a lot of state awards, especially the children's book level in the U.S. So the Blue Bonnet Award is for the Children's Librarians of Texas vote on the book, and it's the Blue Bonnet Award. You may do similar things here, and we want to make sure that we have those recorded in the product. The especially for you is Reader's Advisory and working with youth. If for you as professionals interested in those topics, quick links to our book discussion guides. The books to movies section is a heading that we are tracking books that are being turned into movies. Curricular connections, grab-and-go list, our feature articles, all of that's there. And then these are really quick how to do it tip sheets. How do I find read alikes? How do I find books by appeal and or genre? Pretty quick guides for you and for your readers as well. Okay, this is not the only places that these are available, but this is a handy-dandy way to get to them fairly quickly. When it comes to this keyword search, this basic search, you can search by keyword. You can also, with this drop down here, change that to searching just the title field, just the author field, just the series name field, or just the narrator for the audiobook. So if someone has a favorite narrator and they want to see how many audiobooks has George Guidall read, you can do that search, and that will target and limit that right there at the basics. However, the real power here is Novelist metadata. And let's just talk about sort of the different levels of that metadata, and I'll go through this in a minute. When we move into specific records, I can show you in more detail what we're talking about. But Novelist started in 94. That was when we sold our first copy. All right. Started a little bit before that because we had to build the blessed thing before we could sell it. But you know, no one cares about that part. That's sort of science, the years of the science fair project. We started Novelist because at that time in the U.S., there was no subject access to adult fiction. So the book To Kill a Mockingbird, if you came into the library, you could search on the title and you could search on the author. So the catalog was great for telling you what the library had and answering that first question, does the library own this book that I know about? We were great, we were handled. But if the user's question was, I really liked To Kill a Mockingbird, what are other books that are coming of age stories that have father-daughter relationships? Mm-hmm. Couldn't go anywhere with that. And so we worked with the Public Library in the U.S. as a foundation to begin adding subject headings to fiction titles. And since that time, we've expanded our coverage and the work that we do in that area. So within Novelist, we are assigning, we are identifying a book's genre or subgenre. So not only mystery, but cozy or police procedural, or amateur detective. We are identifying characters, their name, their gender, their ethnicity, their occupation, and frequently nationality. So I could actually search in the U.S. for African American women detectives. In Australia, you could search for Australian detectives. Okay. You could search by age, so that I could search for books that have 12-year-old boys as protagonists. I could search for series character names, Harry Potter, for example. All of that is searchable. In terms of place, I can search country, state or province, city, geographic area. So I could even go down and search for Australian detectives Sydney or Australian detectives Melbourne. Okay. In terms of time period, I can search by century. I can search by decade in the 20th century. And I don't know quite what we've done with the 21st century. Still kind of just getting used to it. But also historical events. So Gallipoli we could search on. World War I, World War II. All those are areas that we could search on, those kinds of events. In addition to that, we have themes and subjects. So things like father-daughter stories, coming of age, dealing with all kinds of illnesses or tragedies or happy events. At the juvenile level, especially at the picture book level, we have things like First Day of School, sibling rivalry, best friends, moving away, all those headings that sometimes when parents are looking for books to help them cope with the situation, you can search and find those in Novelist. Okay. At the audiobook level, we have a series of terms that describe the narrative experience. Are there accents? Is it well produced? Is it a large cast of characters? Is it read by the author? Those kinds of headings are in there as well. All right. And we'll look more at that when we get a little further in the process. But Novelist kind of has what we call basic subject headings, which are some of the things that I just talked about. But then we also have another class of headings. The subject headings are about the content of the book. Our appeal factor headings are about the experience of the book, what reading it is likely to produce. Okay, whereas Becky Spratford said yesterday, it's the adjectives. Subject headings are nouns. Appeal factors are adjectives. Okay, and we have a class of what people would call it the secret language of books. We have close to 100 or more different appeal factors, so that we look at things like pacing. Is it fast-paced or leisurely paced, or does the pace build through the novel? We have tone words like creepy, brooding, uplifting, bittersweet. We have writing style words. Is it lyrical? Is it journalistic? That kind of stuff. We have plot descriptions that also get into, is it stylistically complex? Are there first-person narrative? Is it a first-person narration? All of that kind of stuff is in here as well. And in terms of characters, we have descriptions of the characters that are not just their demographics, but, are they quirky? Are they flawed? Are they likable? Are they well-drawn? Does the character develop through the novel? All of those are aspects and things that you can search on. There are three types of records, and before I get into the three types of records, the next level of indexing and metadata that we're working on right now is themes, so that we realize that there are books that cluster around a particular type of theme or story that's a combination of the subject headings and about what the book is about, as well as how it's told. So you'll start seeing searchable headings for things like Love on the Rocks. And we'll be pulling that. And we think that will be a way to very quickly communicate to a reader, got it, now I know what this book is about. It's another way of doing about this, right? We have one called Sherlock Paws, P-A-W-S, for all the books that have animal detectives in them. Where the animal helps the investigator figure things out. But we'll be doing those kinds of things, and again, those will be kinds of things that you could use as as the basis for book displays and things like that to really kind of capture and engage your reader's interest. So 4 types of records in Novelist. There is a title record, there is an author record. If a book is in a series, there's a series record, and there's also an audiobook record. In this case, we've entered Game of Thrones, and this tab list tells you all the different kinds of results we got back. We got back books that are related to Games of Thrones, including Games of Thrones. There's an audiobook or 2. It's part of a series. The book, of course, has an author. And then we have lists and articles, because Game of Thrones appears on various lists and is mentioned in various articles within novels. This is the broadest keyword. You get everything that fits with these words, relevancy ranked, with this search. In this case, you only got 29 titles. It's not unusual to get several hundred titles. And so what you can do is, once these come in, then you can use the refined results limiters over here to limit by age, to limit by fiction versus nonfiction, and even do date. I only want, adult fiction from the 1990s forward. Okay, then clustering all of these results, the subject headings for all of these results, and the appeal factors are all sort of gathered together in the the headings that have the largest number of hits or appearances are pulled into a way that you can further refine. And I'll show you that in just a second. Here's what an item looks like. Title, this is an award winner, see the little blue indication there. And I can find out what awards it's won by going to the lists and articles tab. Going forward, I didn't know I touched the screen. Okay, got it. Didn't know I did that. Amazing. This is just basic information about the book. The appeal term, link to our appeal book, genre, storyline, tone, and writing style are all there. This column will always be a very important column for you because this has reading recommendations ready to go. So what Novelist is saying is there's up to 9 books that we think fit for Game of Thrones. And those are right there. So you don't have to do any more searching. You don't have to do any more investigating. You can just sort of show this to the reader and see if this meets their expectations. And if they want to go to the shelf and start looking, you just click print all. Okay? And the other thing that we can do, if we haven't done it already, is set up this link to see if you own it, this link to catalog, so that you could actually click on that. Have we done that here or not yet?
I think we had some issues with ISBNs.
Yeah, okay, got it. We're trying to work on that, all right? But we'll be getting better and better at that, and that functionality will come your way, okay? The other thing that I wanted to show here are those tabs that I just showed you. And then for each of these recommendations, we tell you what the book is about, but then we're going to give you some reasoning language here about why we think this book fits, right? And this will either be by one of our contributors or by one of our staff members, or it will be the terms that this book shares with the book that's being displayed, okay? And you have the option to agree or disagree, and that just helps us make it better. Is this helpful what I'm doing? Okay, all right. Series. Game of Thrones is part of a series, and it's actually under the series tab there when you enter Game of Thrones and you get the keywords here. Series, and then here is the series entry, right? And when you click on this, this will then take you to the series page. And the series page will give you a little description, and it'll give you the terms that have been assigned to this series, and then it gives you the series in reading order. Okay? And I can't remember the exact count, but it's like 30 to 40,000 series that we're actively tracking. And we track not only at the adult level, but at the teen and children's level, and even at the picture book level when it makes sense. Another handy thing that I want you to show is that in the result list for any title or series, these are links to those recommendations that are on the side. So if the reader is in a real hurry, all you have to do is click on these and then print. And you've got the answer to the question right there. Okay? Because this is a series, what we're doing here is suggesting other series. If you're looking at a book record, the recommendations are always going to be other books. If you're looking at a series, it's going to be to other series. And more about this series just gives you some more detailed information and subject headings, right? Same thing for an author. If you enter an author name, Octavia Butler, you're going to be taken to an author page. In this case, one here. And you'll see a description of what kinds of books she writes. All right, this is not a biography, it's what kind of writer she is and what to start with, okay? And because she's an author, you'd have other authors that are suggested. So what we're trying to do is match what the request is so that the suggestions fit the request, okay? And, you know, other author information is there. Okay. You can also just enter keywords. We don't have, you know, we probably would have saved ourselves a lot of trouble if we just named keyword describe a plot, because decades ago, and it has been decades, Novelist had a describe a plot function, which basically you entered words and we searched to find books that have that plot. It's exactly what that does, but because we didn't call it describe a plot, people kept writing saying, you've taken away describe a plot. No, we haven't. It's called keyword, just like every other research program. You know, but that really is what you can do. When someone wants a book that's about or feeling or some combination of words, or they can't remember the author or the title, this is where keywords come in, okay? And you can refine your search here in viewing these results again. See, 3,500 titles, that's probably way more than anyone wants to read. So you refine over there, and then you look at the clustering, and you can actually refine that clustering. And I'll actually show you when I go live in a few minutes how that works, all right? So here's an audiobook, the last record, entering a command authority, which is a Tom Clancy title, I believe. Select the audiobook tab because this result will get you print and audiobook. You go to the result list, and then you get the fact that this is part of a series, listen alikes, the audio appeal terms, characters, commanding, gravelly, intense, resonant, well characterized, are all descriptions of the voice. And if you want to actually hear it, you click the audio sample, and you'll hear a minute or so of the narrator reading. And that way you can sort of actually determine whether this reader is going to work for you or not. The audio review is from Audiophile Magazine, and it just literally is the reviewer speaking the review instead of you having to read it, okay? And there's the audiophile review and all the different headings that you can search on. Let's just take a quick look at the Reader's Advisory for You. I know that one of the challenges I had as a librarian was trying to keep up with genres and authors and titles and how genres changed, and whether or not I didn't read certain genres. Our keeping up pages are genre-oriented pages that describe the genre, give you some key authors and titles, and talk about trends, and also give you some links to other articles and other ways to explore. And we will talk about how to use our browse functionality, genre browse, as a way to sort of educate yourself and readers about some of the other books and things that are out there. Becoming a better reader's advisor, we have on our website under the Reader's Advisory Toolkit some Reader's Advisory strategies, success stories from different libraries who have done different things with Reader's Advisory. We actually have one library that is sort of, this is a variation on the blind date with a book. The user fills out a card about what they're interested in, and the librarians just go and pull books off the shelf and have it in a bag that's already checked out to the user. So the user just comes in and picks up the bag. And what they do is they give the user 4 or 5 titles, and then the user just finds the ones that work for them and then gets comments on it and then brings them all back and then picks up the next bag and goes. And so it's a way to save busy readers time, but still give them a selection of potential books. It's not bad for circulation either. But anyway, so that's all kind of just a strategy there. I mentioned the Book Squad, and that's, again, that's an email service. They come out about once a month. They are pretty chatty. They have their own personality. They're not dull. Because the people who write them back at Novelist World Headquarters aren't dull. I mean, we kind of, when we were defining eccentric and quirky characters, we just looked at our staff and this is what we're talking about. No, really much better than that. But they do a really good job of communicating their passion and enthusiasm for the topics that they are writing about. Okay. We've got working for youth. You'll see more books. These change, and we tend to take popular books and give you a list of titles. Resources that are tied to schools. There are books that support certain types of writing assignments that are lists there that can be useful. And things like that, programming ideas and ideas for educators, all of that is there for you. Okay, and Novel Select is just taking all this information and pushing it into the catalog, where your readers can encounter it there and where you can encounter it there, right? And we're talking about ways to make this service possible here in Australia. Novelist support site, the Novelist databases, Novelist Select, all of our products are grouped and support, the Novelist user guide, training and promotion, FAQs, and Novelist News is a free newsletter that comes out every month that is packed with not only how to use the product tips, but also talking about readers advisory topics and strategies. So the Wake County's Bag of Books program was just written about in Novelist News, right? And so that's where we put things like that. And you might even find out things about like the Novelist Grant Program, where we will take a topic and say, I think we just finished our first cycle that we're actually giving out $1,000 to $2,000 grants to about 10 different libraries we will decide on a topic like marketing readers advisory. And then libraries submit proposals to us to get the $2,000 funding and to carry out what they want to do. And then they write that up. They become part of our webinar series. And that's just one of the things that we'll keep in mind. You might have to do a sub-pilot project over here.
You get more for your money.
That's right. Yeah, the exchange rate is really good. Yeah, so I'll take that little idea back if that sounds like something you would be interested in doing here. And then Novelist, we also have a training newsletter that has training tips and talks about all the different training resources that we have and the new ones that are coming online as well. Okay? And you don't need to see that because that's something we're not going to get to today. But as it's a nice series that ended. The HBO series had several Australian actors in it, I believe, and so that's another connection there as well. All right. I've been talking for about 50 minutes or so, and so I want to give you a chance to get up and move around, and let me switch gears here for a second. But before I do that, do I have any questions?
Can we get the online catalog of Novelist, or is that?
We're having to work on that. There's an issue with ISBN mapping, but we think we're doing a better job of that, and we're going to get even better at it. So it might be time to retry that. Okay?
There are Australian libraries that have it working. Yeah, depending on your library management system, I think.
Yep. And we're getting ready to, we have a very good relationship with Circegonics, for example, and we are talking with Seneca, and we're very willing to talk to them too. And really, I mean, the way this has tended to work is one of our libraries has talked to their iOS system and said, we really want this functionality, and we're very willing to work with them. We have an API in place and staff who do that all day, basically. Okay, but we'll talk more about that later. All right. Okay, so why don't we, for those of you here in the audience, take about maybe 10 minutes, and those of you at home or wherever do the same, and we'll come back about 11:35. Okay, thank you.
They didn't see the screen even though I was sharing screen.
Okay. So we can
do that again for the next time. And if not,
I will leave you the
yes.
and you just copy it off the flash drive. I'll verify that. Who else can do that?
So I did have on Chrome, had those videos on that second tab. But then if you go to the next tab, we can get up to it.
Yeah, let's do that. Great.
No RRL. This is not come up with it, not NSW. Oh, yes, that's okay.
That one?
And then information online at the orange one. Scroll down a little bit. There we go. I might go back and try to share on screen again.
Yeah, I think you I mean, the recording should capture it anyway.
So it did say, do you want to share the whole screen? Yes, I do. She said it was sharing screen recording. But I think the same thing happened to Ellen yesterday. She sent it to something this morning saying that it hurt. I think it's actually in Chrome. The first one. Like it, it just popped up in the phone. She's reading. Share. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Now we might hit us in the chat to see whether they can see that.
Yeah, why don't we just turn off the camera?
Or even do the camera to the screen. So you'll have to hit enter for that chat to yeah. So the irritating thing about that is now that we see all of that, we can't see it's not in between. Which might be because we're doing it through you just click anywhere else and everything like that. But if you go back to oh, goodness, stand I don't know, it just stopped sharing at some point.
Oh, I bet. I won't touch it.
Well, that's like it is sharing now, they can see it. Yeah. Hopefully it'll stay that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it pops up in the window down here if you're paying attention just long enough for you to miss it, you know. You can do more than one.
Something's loaded on this now.
Pardon?
These are on our PCs now, aren't they?
Yes, yes. So you know how we do the what will I read next form? This is what Cynthia and I use to fill that out. So that's our form-based advice.
You should send some copies.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an online form mostly, although we do sometimes think about mobile people. Ah. In North Carolina, I've been there. Or have I been to South Carolina? Hilton Head Island, where's that? South Carolina, so no, I've been there.
Near Charleston.
Yes, we're into Charleston. Yeah, and it was like that. This is a long time ago. My dad used to go to conferences around the world, and this was all the
I said that's right. If you went into that I'll translate. And then the driver there is like tourist, just walking past. Anyway, she must have said,
They completely changed it.
yeah, so it was only good one, but similar to it.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started back here, and because I'm mindful that we should be winding up around noon, I believe. Is that right? Is that what your expectation? So what I want to do is, earlier when we started the program this morning, I asked you for some scenarios, right? Types of questions you might get from readers, and I want to talk about how you can use Novelist to answer those questions. And but one of the things that I really want to sort of emphasize is it's not just about your searching, it's about how you involve the user in the search process. And there's a wonderful woman from Canada named Catherine Sheldrick Ross. And she was a professor. She was actually the dean of the School of Information Studies at Western Ontario. She is probably the best library researcher in the area of reading that I'm aware of. She has about 400 in-depth qualitative interviews of people talking about books they've read and how reading fits in their lives. She also teaches reference and has several books on the reference interview and that process. And she published an article in public libraries a couple of decades ago called The Best and the Worst of 50 Public Library Reference Transactions. She sent her students out with a question that they were interested in, and they reported back what happened to them in the library. And there were some very good experiences, and there were some experiences that really kind of scared me and scared a lot of us because there was a complete disconnect between what the user was asking and what the staff member did. And the user felt, one user said, it was as though I asked my question and it was as though my question had a life of its own and I no longer mattered because the librarian left me standing at the desk and went off to get something and came back and handed it to me. And so there was no involvement, right? And the other thing that we miss doing it that way, or sitting down and typing and going, oh, Thornbirds, you'll like that. We shut the user out. and our users really do benefit from having a relationship with us. They view it as part of the service, and it gives you a great opportunity to communicate what you know and your value, why you are your community's most important information resource. Okay, so let's say someone comes in and he comes in and says, you know, I just finished reading Long Way from Home, read another good one, just loved it. And, you know, and actually, what she's going to tell me is she really wants to read it, but she wants to know if the library has it. And the library does have it, but maybe there are holds on it. And so I can offer to put it on hold, and that's one level of service. And say, thank you, is there anything else? Now, the reason I said it that way was that one of the most innovative libraries in the U.S. did a secret shopper study where the secret shoppers went in with a book question like the one I just used. And they knew that the library owned the book, and they knew that the book was already checked out. And so in 95% of the cases, the staff member verified that the book was owned and was out and offered to put it on hold. In 75% of the cases, the staff member did not suggest another title or offer to help the staff member to find something else. So if you care about circulation, if that matters, 75% of those transactions did not result in an additional circulation, and they probably could have, right? And so what I will do with Amy in that case is I would go, you know, your tax dollars are going. I would go, so I understand that you're really interested in reading Peter Carey and Long Way Home. It's owned, but it's checked out. Put you on hold for it, but let me see if you would like me to. I can see if I can find something else that you might be interested in while you wait. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a resource called Novelist to help us, to the pronoun, us, find you some books to read. So I'm establishing that we are going to do this together, that I'm not going to try to push something off on her, or that I'm not going to keep her out, right? And so I would go, let's see what Novelist knows about this book that you're talking about. Long Way from Home. And when it comes back up here in just a second, there's several titles with those words in them, but I think you were interested in the Peter Carey novel, is that right? Okay. Now, what I could do right here is I could go, let's take a look at some title read-alikes. And there's your list with why she might like them, right? And she could, if Amy was in a hurry, we could print that out. She could go to the shelves, or I could print out the authors if she wanted to browse some similar authors, which probably increases her likelihood of finding something. And since she is clearly liking this author, not just this book, is another strategy there. The other thing that we can do is actually pull this, go into the record, and say, you know, I know you haven't read it yet, but here's what the reviewers are saying, but you've already decided that, but you might find this interesting, right? Here are some of the ways that this book has been described. Here are the jackets that went to those recommendations. And if I hover over that, I'll see what the rationale is for that. Now, I haven't read any of these books, right? And so if Amy says to me, well, the Artichoke Queen, what do you know about that book? I'll say, well, what Novelist knows about this book is here. And you can even agree or disagree with that, and we will tell them and they'll get better at it, right? And I could actually go into the book record itself. The other thing, if none of these are working, right, then what I do is I go down here and I say, well, Amy, take a look at these words. And when you think about Long Way Home, what do you hope, which of these words do you hope really describes what that book is about? And she might go, well, it's a literary fiction, and I'm hoping that it'll have a strong sense of place. And I hope it will be really about characters. All right? And I let her pick it, right? And we want her to pick one or two, not 4 or 5, because if she picks 3 or 4, we're going to get 1 or 2 books, and that's not going to get us anywhere, because I want to open up the possibilities here, okay? And so we do strong sense of place, literary fiction, and we wound up with 343.
Sorry, I've already read the top 2.
Right, okay, all right, so you've already read the top 2. All right, you read the top 2. Do you know about these others?
I haven't read the 3rd, I have read the 4th.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what happens. Right, and I'm going to put you on the spot and I want you to look at and listen to what just happened. Listen to her affect. It's, oh, I read this top 2. And there's some excitement there. We've gone from a disappointment of the book I wanted is not available right now to a more pleasant experience and a more engaging experience, right? And so, we could go through these and look at some of the others, right? We could also go over here, and here's where limiters might come in, right? I mean, this clustering. Maybe, you said that location was important. Are you interested in any of these locations?
Top one.
New York? Let's just click New York City then. Okay, and now we're down to 20. Okay, but you see how I'm letting her drive? Because what's happening here is she's looking and making decisions and choices. And then because she's driving and influencing the list here, she's going to stay more engaged and more interesting, right? And so at this point, we could look through some others, or say, not right now, but remind me to tell you about The Age of Innocence and how that book led to the establishment of a cupcake empire in the U.S., if you're curious. The conversation happens, right? And so that's how I would move from just putting a book on hold to using Novelist to open up some possibilities, right? And I think, that at this point, I would also say, you can get to this from our website so that you can search on this at home, and I'll certainly be happy to help you anytime you come in. But you may just want to play around with this yourself if there's something else I can show you or help you with. See what it is? Okay. I think that's a very different experience, and what the user then feels is that they owned the experience. They owned the relationship. They drove. They learned some things about a library resource that they didn't know about. And they learned about some expertise I have in helping them find resources that meet their needs and open up new doors and new opportunities for them. Okay? All right. So that's one example. I'm going to go back and do. I'm going to do the dry just to show you. There, stop jumping in there. Give me a second. So here's the title. Notice that this link is a link to the series, and I know there are only 2 books in the series right now, but the series has started, right? And this is the link to the author page, okay? And I can go to either of those pages, and we'll take a look at some of those pages a little later on. What I wanted to do here was go to, I'm actually going to go into the draw. I'm going to go into the Aaron Falk novel series. And then over here are other series that you might like, right? However, the other thing that we can do that is pretty powerful here, if you have long holds on force of nature, you could come here and you could click mysteries and richly detailed, which means the mystery has a big backstory to it and a lot of information about a particular topic, and in the way that the dry does about Australia and the outback and the financial stuff that goes on in there. Those are all rich details, right? But you could do that, and now I'm not actually working with an individual user. I'm thinking about all those people who are going to come in asking for that book, right? And I'm going to click on search. And now I have 309 series that are mysteries and richly detailed. Now, their association with the dry is going to be loose, okay? But I could certainly look through here, and some of these series have been running for a long time. Some of them have ended, which means they're probably sitting on your shelf, or the first book in the series is sitting on your shelf. And what you could do is just pull some of those first books, do a display, and say,
while you're waiting for the trial.
that's well, you could actually say, Aaron's not around, check out some of his mates, or something like that, right? And play around with it that way. But you see how you begin to move away. And then the great thing about if you can get someone started on a series and they like the first one, well then that's 5 checkouts, 8 checkouts, 10 checkouts, and then there you go, right? So that's using a series. I'm going to do one other title just to sort of one of the things that, especially if you're working with somebody who's reading in an area that you don't read in, like maybe you don't read science fiction, there's a title by Ian McDonald right now that's getting a lot of attention, as the second one in the series has just come out, but it's about 5 wealthy families colonizing and running the moon, right? And one family's from Brazil, one's from Africa, one's from Australia. So this might have some local interest. And what you could do is just go in here and say, here's some other, other books that would certainly work. But you could also go down here and just do science fiction and the moon. you know, and do search. Or corporate power would be another one to look at because that's a big theme, and one that is these are companies now, not companies that are fighting for control of the moon. But you've got 137 potential titles to choose from. Okay. Let me do a couple of other scenarios, and then I'll be able to take some questions. Remember when I talked about someone comes in, they said, I read this book 3 years ago and I borrowed it from this library, but I can't remember the author of the title, and you know, that happens, right? So this happened to me as a reader, right? Because a friend of mine said, you know, you love Game of Thrones, and I know he's not writing fast enough for you or the rest of the world. You know, but I know of a read series a while ago that I think you might like, and he said it's called The Atari, is what I heard, and that it's set in a medieval Japan. I said, okay, fine. So he couldn't remember the author of title either. So I come over to Novelist and I typed in, well, I'm just going to type in, he said the series name was Atari. And I typed that in, and what came back, or what comes back, is, that's not what I was looking for. And so, okay, so clearly I got the name wrong, right? But he did tell me that it was, let's start with the big and move to the narrow. So it was fantasy. It was set in Japan, and it was during that sort of medieval time period. Okay. So no, I'm interested in manga, an epic fantasy, medieval Japan, Otori, not Atari. Have you ever had a user who just misheard something? You know, well, doing it this way then, this is actually the series of books, and it's really funny that this is the series of books because Liam Hearn is an Australian fantasy writer, and I went on to really love and enjoy these. And it's been a topic of conversation because Tim did, and managing director for ALS yesterday told me about when we were doing our exercise of books. He started talking about the first book in this series, and I said, "Oh, the Atari series." And he said, "I have never met anyone else who read those books." You know, I said, "Well, I've got a treat for you because not only did I, but the guy going to dinner with us did too." And so we had a really great conversation about that. I'm sorry, I'm off task here. But I'm off task and I'm not. Everything I'm talking about is all these conversations are what our service is about. Is supporting and helping and making those conversations happen. You know, it just happened because I was able to read those books that yesterday a future colleague and business partner and I connected in a way that we would never have connected without that happening, right? So that's a way to get around I can't remember the author of the title. The other thing this does, if you remember when Amy went, I read those two books, the top two books on the list, but when they see a list, they'll start looking at it. And when they start looking at a concrete title that has a description, they'll go, well, no, it wasn't manga. It was an epic fantasy. Oh, that's new. Let's put epic in there. You know, but you will get books that are connected to what they're looking for. And many times I've seen readers take pen and paper and start writing down the titles that aren't the ones they're looking for, but the titles that are on the list. Right? Let's talk about dealing with finding books for young readers that are within their reading range. Okay? And does the term Lexile mean anything to you here? Okay. The short version is, think of Lexile. Lexile is a number. It's a number that when the text of a book has been analyzed, it's normed and assigned a number that places it in the reading continuum, right? The higher the score, the harder it is to read. And the algorithm that is used has a range of readability, okay? So think of a Lexile number as like a Dewey number for a book's readability. And the way that Dewey places a book in a subject area, the Lexile score places it within a readability area. So if you have an example of a book that someone has read, okay, and that book has a Lexile score, you can use that to get to other books that are at a similar reading level, okay? Now, I want to emphasize that this is not about the content of the book, so it's not normed for a 13-year-old should really be reading the content of this book. It's about the textual complexity of the book, okay? But is Rick Riordan popular over here? So let's say Sword of Summer. I say to somebody, have you, students trying to find more books to read. What's the book that you've read and enjoyed? What's the book you've read? Sword of Summer. So I'll go in to Sword of Summer, and there it is. And really, this is all I need, even though I might point out there might be some other books in this series you might want to try. That 630 right there is all I need, okay? And I'm going to go to my advanced search, and I'm going to clear this because it brought over Sword of Summer. And I'm going to go down here to this Lexile score search, okay? And I'm going to type in 630. And I'm going to search. And I've got 21,000 titles that are within that readability range. Now that poor child is going to have to be picked up off the floor. But sort of say, hang in there with me, stick with me, we'll get there. Because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and I'm going to do teen and fiction and update. And that's going to take me down to 2,900. Still a lot, but I can go over here and say, well, what would you like? You want to take a look at who's in these books, and they're going to go, yeah, maybe courageous. Let's find somebody who's courageous, a character that's courageous. And now I'm down to 17. Okay, and now that's a manageable list. And I've let that student again drive, let the reader drive, okay? And so that's how that works. And we have a how to use Lexile search guide in the product, so you can, remember, you go and find that and use that, and it's all in that. How do I? Right over there are the links to those search strategies, okay? One other thing, I'm kind of beginning to run over just a little bit, but stay there with me, and I'll promise in the next 5 minutes I'll let you go or take your questions. Romance readers who want books to have a certain level of sensuality, okay? A key principle in Novelist, in using Novelist, is to move from a known item to unknown items, okay? To get the reader to give you an example of that meets their criteria. and then use the metadata in Novelist to move to other items that have that criteria. Okay, and so when someone says, I want a book that has a certain level of sexuality in it, I would go, can you give me an example of a book that does that? And in my case, it would be Do or Die. A Navy SEAL romance novel by Suzanne Blockman. All of her male characters are Navy SEALs, and complications ensue as they try to. Usually, they're trying to protect some officer or some government agent who happens to be a woman, and it kind of goes from there. But if I go in and I look at this record, right, what I'm going to do, and I've got all these over here that I could use, but I'm going to go down and just kind of go romantic suspense and undertone. Steamy is we use 4 words to describe the level of sexuality in romance novels. The first word is chaste. Then we go to mildly sensuous. Then we go to steamy. And then we go to explicit. Okay, so when I do that, notice just, did you click on? Yeah, you did. Let me get in here with this tone word. Yep, let me pick it up there. So I've got over 1,200 titles, and I could go down here and go, oh, I'm tired of Navy SEALs, but let's see what's happening with FBI agents these days. And now I'm down to 77.
Because on that original record, did it tell you what category it was?
Yeah, romantic suspense was the
one that was available.
Well, and steamy was the tone word. Yeah. But what happened? I clicked it and then I unclicked it by accident. So, all right. So that's how to really work that search bar. But the other thing that I want to be sure that you do is that you take a look at some of our browsing options. One of them is we talked about, and notice how this is shifting from where we were this morning. There's an additional series of things up here. But if I can actually go to the appeal mixer and do my own, right? I can come in here and go, for character, I want quirky. And this is the number of books that we've assigned that heading to, right? And for storyline, I want let's see. No, actually, that's fine. Character driven, which makes sense. But I can do all kinds of combinations there. And again, at all different reading levels. Yep, and flag fits. And color fits. Now,
I just said I knew how we'll try to then.
Eleanor Olsen.
Yeah. And so, there, that's how that works, right? And then down here, you see you've got all these different kinds of terms that you can fool around with. But this is a visual approach to browsing, right? And then one last thing, and I will then let you go or take your questions. Keeping up with genres and trends we know is a challenge. If I go into browse genres, I'm going to just stick with science fiction. And notice we have our nonfiction as well. But if I go to science fiction, it will show me some forthcoming titles. Okay, so this is a way to look through here and see if you see any authors who are popular, who are coming out with a new book a little bit ahead of the game, so you can begin to think about your display strategy, your book list strategy, all that. But it's a great way to educate yourself about the different kinds of science fiction and what all is out there. Okay, it's also a great way for somebody who's saying, well, I'm looking for something different, and they can't help you. They don't know what different means. You can go into browse and say, just pick some of the, pick a genre, or pick a topic, pick another one, and then they will begin to narrow into what you're looking for. Okay. The things on the right here are different lists that are recommended reading lists, and then this is what a keeping up page for science fiction looks like. I mentioned those earlier. The lists you'll love, background reading, some titles to try, and then a poster. Okay. These are recommended reads for people who like Star Wars. Okay. Okay. All right. So it's not all about, but that's all I've got time for. So what I'd like to do is I'll be glad to answer questions, both here or on chat. And I want to thank you for your time and your attention. I'm going to leave Amy with a copy of the PowerPoint so that she can distribute it to those folks that may not have seen it when I accidentally touched the screen and sharing stopped working. But that's kind of what I wanted to do, is just give you some examples of how novels can fit into your everyday, and maybe introduce some strategies for making even more effective use of the product. So thank you for your time and attention. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Does anyone online have any questions? So anyone wants to send any questions by chat, we'll just leave that there for a little bit.
Yep.
Does anyone here have any questions?
Okay. And so that's kind of the formal part of the program. I'm going to hang around for a little bit, and if people have questions, or I've got a couple of reader videos we could look at and talk about, if that would be interesting to you. I'm going to be here until 1.
You wanted to talk to us about Australian things.
Oh, yeah, and we want to talk to you about Australian things as well. Okay, cool. All right.
I think Ellen has to turn that off, actually, not us. I don't have to turn it off. Oh, there you go. Here's the question. Who decides the Lexile number? Is it an algorithm?
Yes.
So I think you have to hit enter. Yeah. Actually, they can probably still hear you.
It's right down the road from us, actually. I think it's the phone.
And we did all this contractual negotiation with them and then realized that their office was $100. Our office was all by phone, email, web offices and stuff.
We had a coffee meeting.
Yeah, right.
And do they use Goodreads to get their data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our lunch is coming at 1. So yeah, Ellen said that we would have once we turned that off and stopped sharing with everybody, that Duncan would have a discussion with us about working with Australian libraries. And so I think we just have to let Ellen turn that off because we don't have the ability to stop recording. She's got that.
Okay, and we could actually mute, I guess.
Yeah.
And that way we
Hit the on audio on. We could even leave if we wanted to at the top. We could just leave audio.